Hello and welcome. This is Tydy Tea Time. Hello, everybody. Hi, Pooja, Soumya, Kiran.
Hello.
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 So, today we are going to be talking about cause washing. Does anyone know what cause washing is? Anyone care to explain if you do? Okay, Soumya, picking on you.
Okay, my understanding of cause washing is basically, or rather, cause marketing. Let me start with cause marketing. Is the whole idea of kind of using a cause, which probably is a social cause, environmental cause, and kind of having a marketing campaign around it if it's about marketing, but also how a brand stands for a cause, right? So that's cause marketing, but when it gets used only for from a branding perspective or maybe from a marketing perspective, and it does not really reflect in the action vision of the company, then it kind of tends into cause washing. So
That's right.
there's greenwashing, which is about your environment. There's pink washing, which is maybe about cancer awareness. There's woke washing, which is like you pretend to stand up for social justice causes, but it just ends with maybe a social media campaign that you run, for example.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, even I was surprised when I saw that there's something called woke washing. There's brown washing, which is when you are when you claim to support the Black Lives Matter movement, for example, right? And but then you're not really putting your money where your mouth is. I think that's the problem. And to what you said, right? I'm glad you kind of differentiated between cause marketing and cause washing because there is a very, very fine line between the two things, like
Yeah.
cause marketing is a legitimate, justifiable campaign that you can create when you want to raise awareness for a cause and when you're actually doing something about it as a company, whereas cause washing is when you're not being entirely truthful about it, right? I think that's the whole thing. And the reason now that we're talking about cause washing today is, Earth Day just went by, right, for example, and then next month is Pride Month, and soon we will we'll see everybody's social media will be painted in rainbow colors. Logos will turn rainbow, banners will turn rainbow, merchandise will be produced, and suddenly you'll see that everywhere. But it made us kind of wonder, right? Like how much of it is true solidarity, whereas how much of it is just showing something just to be seen as an ally or maybe just to gain something out of it. What are your thoughts on cause washing, Kiran?
First of all, I love TTT, Tidy Tea Time, because of this. It educates me about a lot of these trends and words which I otherwise would not have heard of. Um, but but I think I have always been a proponent of doing something other than just business, right? So how can business actually help improve various other parts of the world and not just the bank account of the of the company and of the stakeholders there. In fact, just from a background setting perspective, straight out of college, I was stupid enough to start a CSR consulting company, where we did it for a couple of years, and realized that at that point, circa 2002 2004, um, companies, especially in India at least, were not ready for that sort of consulting, right,
Hmm.
and that sort of engagement with society. So I've always kind of been very passionate about this. um, I think the biggest problem is if a company markets and uses things like this only on their social media and in their advertising, but there's no action to back it up.
Yeah.
That's the only difference. The moment you kind of have action, then it's no longer cause washing or greenwashing or any of that. The moment you put action to it, I think that's when you start seeing the difference between cause washing versus someone who's actually, or a company who's actually investing. Now, the only thing I would like to also say is that putting money is very, very, very easy for a
Hmm.
large company, for a business. It's very easy to put money and say, hey, I'm supporting people's rights, I'm supporting the ecology, I'm supporting, XYZ. But it's very, I would say, very, oh, what's the word that I'm looking for? But very kind of, where you're just armchair supporting,
Yeah.
right? You're not really doing much else.
You're
So,
doing
so I
the
think,
minimum, the bare
yeah,
minimum.
I think another further definition I would add is, it should also be action that is really going beyond just a check.
Hmm.
Though a check is very useful for most people, for most organizations, checks are also super useful. Let's not discount that. But I think to really be an organization that supports a cause, you really need to go beyond that. And like, you have so many companies like Patagonia and so many others who really kind of go deep into their ethos on what they support. So for me, that's my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have a comment from Ajay who says it is virtue signaling, right? At the end of the day, it's also another way of kind of looking at cause washing. So, of course, there's a difference, right? Which is why I love the phrase "putting your money where your mouth is," because it really, like, evokes that whole thing about just stop talking and do. In this case, of course, to what you said, Kiran, it's not just about that check. Of course, check comes in handy. A lot of people just need the money, and less interference, the better, to be honest. But I mean, it is a start. And if you cannot be an like, for example, every company can't say, go out and say, I'm going to do more for education, if they don't have the expertise in house to do something about it, right? So then that check comes in
Yeah.
handy to actually hand over to people who are experts, who've invested in that particular cause, and then you help it go a lot further. But it makes me wonder why, like, why do companies feel the need to do it? Is it purely just about marketing? Like, what's pushing them to do this virtue signaling? Pooja?
Mm, I guess it could do with just simple pressure. That could be one reason for why a lot of companies just jump on the bandwagon of all of these social causes. But um, I think, like, even we, honestly, back, I think last year or the year before that, we did try our hand at Pride Month, and we did change our logo, and but then we realized as soon as we did it that that's all we did, and we did sort of pride, I mean, rainbow wash. So I guess recognizing the extent or the level of, because we as a company at the moment, it's important also to, we don't have that diversity within our organization right now, so that makes it also a little bit harder for us to really speak the truth about what we feel and how we support the cause. So it has to be like an all-round effort, full and thorough commitment from your part, whether it is as an individual or as a company, in supporting any political, social, environmental causes.
Yeah.
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 I think it's also a reflection of what people expect, right? If
Mm.
organizations are tending towards cause marketing, which sometimes falls into the cause washing category, is also because I think as consumers we are expecting companies to stand up for certain causes, or to have a certain kind of personality that supports a certain cause and everything, which we find relatable as well. And there's also data that says, I think amongst millennials and Gen Zs, almost two-thirds of them want to associate with brands that really support a cause, has a purpose to it, right? That could be a pressure. That's definitely because you want to have your customers, build your market share. So you're looking at what people really want. And I think in that process, and because in maybe in bigger organizations not every team works together, when marketing is sitting in that silo and thinking about how to sell, and there's something trending, there's probably a hashtag trending on internet, you pick up on it. You don't want to fall behind. You pick up on it so that you are seen as well, right? it's also going back to our organizational structures, understanding where this is originating from. I think, like Kiran said, if it comes from your company ethos, it comes from your, the vision that you have, then maybe it takes a different angle. But the moment it originates at your PR team's desk or your marketing team's desk, there's a possibility that it takes a cause washing angle if the rest of the organization does not come together to support it. Because it's a lot of work. If you're supporting a cause, there's a lot of work that goes behind actually being committed to it, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think it's interesting to note how this has evolved over time, right? It was easier to cause wash, to virtue signal, or green wash a few years ago, when advertising primarily happened. Okay, many years ago, not few, when advertising primarily happened through print, television, ads that you saw outdoor. Very little happened in the digital space, but now there is so much information available to us as consumers, that anytime a company is doing something, you can actually dig deeper and see, do they really mean it? Is this, like you said, originating at the PR desk, or is this something that the company really really stands for, right? I love this example. Benita has just uh, commented, saying that, I noticed that loads of companies in India, for example, have begun purple washing. Purple washing is to do with standing up for women's rights, right, and equal pay. But they have nothing to back up that claim. There's really no pay parity or even simple policies like pay transparency, right? And this is so relevant to us, and especially since we are talking about how work should be designed going forward, what the future of work needs to look like. It makes you wonder, like, how can companies hold themselves accountable? Like you said, how do you marry marketing to the larger vision of the company? Like, should it be then driven by the same kind of person? Like, what does that mean?
I think because I've worked in the internal communication space, and vision, mission statement, your values are something that people at that time, at least maybe like 5 years ago, didn't really put a lot of value on, except that we as internal comms teams would probably create something to kind of communicate that, right? But if you really look at it in circumstances like this, it's like your manual to actually go back and see, what do you stand for, what do you not stand for, what if there's a situation, how do you react to it. So that's like your organization's manual to actually see how you are responding, behaving in situations. So I think that's where the importance of all of your principles of what your entire organization should be comes into place, and that's why I think you should have it in the first place and give a lot of thought to it as well.
Then it makes me wonder, right? Okay, so one hand, we're talking about it, how it shouldn't be purely a marketing gimmick, right? I agree, it shouldn't be just a marketing gimmick. You can't be talking about it just because everybody else is talking about it, and somewhere you worry about your brand taking a hit if you don't ride the same bandwagon, right? But that said, is it possible to still run that campaign, still paint your logo rainbow? And like Pooja said, like, you might not have the numbers, or you might not have representation within your employees, maybe because we're a small company, we're 30 people company, 30 plus, we're growing really fast, and we hope that by talking about it, we're seen as a place that is welcoming to all. I think that is also the idea. So then, how do you is it how do you make it clear that you do stand for something, and just by talking about it, you're increasing visibility, right? Because certain causes just need that, they need supporters. Kiran?
Hmm.
I think one of the most important things, at least for me, is unless you clean up your house, you don't let other people in, right? And from that thought process perspective, like Benita mentioned, if it's about pay parity and encouraging, for example, a more diverse workplace, you need to really start at home. And if you don't do that, it becomes a little hypocritical to go out and say, hey, I'm going to now support a completely different community, which, I'm not even interacting with on a daily basis, perhaps. Right. So if you don't do whatever it takes to build that sense of commitment internally, I think it becomes even more hypocritical if you suddenly go out and say, hey, I support Pride Month, but you're not really kind of, open to a diverse workplace. I support women leadership, and you'll give a thumbs up to a LinkedIn post, but you don't really believe that, it makes sense to bring in women into the organization. So I think the idea for me is always, unless it is starting from inside and literally from the inside, meaning the entire kind of workings of the company, unless that has the ethos of being diverse, of being, supportive, equal, um, it is really stupid for an organization to start thinking outside. So it's
Mm.
always best to kind of first fix everything internally before you can kind of go out. And for me, that's a
I
barometer as far as Tidy is concerned. So
I agree. We need to start things internally, of course. But I think where we also get it wrong sometimes is that this is going to be a process, right? Even
Mm.
if I'm committed to a cause, I need to have the room to have not taken everything into account or
yeah,
having had a slip and learning from that.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
think that is room that when you're outside, when consumers are like, we're all on the internet, that space is not there. The moment a company slips up, or if I've also seen when companies, if you don't stand up for a certain cause, then you're literally penalized online for it, right? I think we need the room. We have to hold people accountable, but accountability in a way that they can correct themselves wherever they've gone wrong and move forward. I think that is also an important aspect to this entire.
It is. It 100% is. It's an evolution, right? Like you said, it's 100% evolution. Now, the day I started Tidy, would I start building my CSR, practice internally? No, that doesn't really make sense, right? My corporate social responsibility practice would not start the day I started Tidy. But as I grow and I build the company, and we have more and more people, and we have a more diverse workplace, and we have an understanding of where Tidy wants to be, it makes sense to then start building what that thought process is going to be from a social responsibility perspective, right? How do you become a responsible citizen from a society perspective? And it need not always be about the check. For me, I think it's always ideal when a company, for example, can use what it's good at, its core competence, to help other ecosystems and help other parts of society other than just a check, right? So if your company is great at technology, if your company is great at building products, if your company is great at I don't know, maybe increasing the quality of air, whatever it may be, how do you use that externally to go out and then support other ecosystems that need that, right? Because that's, I think, way more valuable. That human intellect that you've built, that IP that you've built, how can you use that becomes more important than, just, for example, money and advertising.
Yeah. In fact, again, another very valid comment coming in where she's talking about Benita's talking about startup culture and its boom where they forgot to lay their foundation in driving their business with purpose. Right, this word purpose is so important here, and that's where the lack is. But it's never too late to realign in terms of vision and mission. Right, you know what you said, and in an ideal situation it should be at the core of what the company does, whatever cause you align yourself with, and I think that is
Yeah.
really really powerful because it helps you be more authentic, right? You don't have to make up stuff, and that's the important
Yeah.
thing. You're not trying to do something because everyone else is doing it. You're doing it because you truly can do something and you believe in it. Like, for example, for us, we want to make work a better place because that's where we are at, right? We're talking about using our product to make work easier, faster, more efficient. We're talking about creating a more equitable workplace for people, starting with new hires all the way to when they decide to leave, because all of these things, and for us it's a basic thing, like providing access to the right people, to the right data, to the right information at the right time, right? These are all things that kind of align with our vision of creating that workplace which is an ideal workplace where people are not floundering, people are not lost, and things get done. and it opens you up for more meaningful things. Ultimately, that's the goal, right? We all want meaningful work, meaningful relationships, and that is how you kind of align it. And it's okay, I think, for us to be simple about what we are espousing, right? I don't think it needs to be complicated. It doesn't need to be cool. It doesn't need to be what everyone else is doing, right? But
And also, I think another big thing is, as a company, you may not be able to support every single cause that's out there, and
yeah.
it's okay because it doesn't make sense. For us, maybe education makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but that doesn't mean that we don't care about it. For example, right? And therefore, it doesn't mean that the marketing team has to suddenly put up a logo with when it's Education Month or Education Day or whatever it may be, right? So the point is also that pressure to say, oh shit, I support everything,
Hmm.
is, I think, a ridiculous ask from people and from the company themselves. You can't support everything in this world.
So it makes me wonder, right? We've seen it all, and how many of us, like, what does it do, in your head when you see a brand s- cause washing, say greenwashing or rainbow washing, and you know for a fact that this company probably doesn't really believe this? What do you do? Do you stop buying? What would you do? What's the extreme?
Oh yeah, 100%. I've done that multiple times.
Yeah. What about you, Pooja?
I mean, it depends on how much of a negative impact it has on my beliefs, But so far, I haven't really. Um, there aren't too many examples that stand out in my head about cause washing. But yes, if it were to come to a point that it can switch like that, like I can just suddenly, simply because they've gone, taken um, the a different road, I would choose to not buy or subscribe or any of those things.
Like that famous case of KFC, for example, they came out during, I think it was during Pinktober, they came out with these buckets for the cure, where they
Yeah.
said they were pink color buckets and said, at 50 cents from each, the sale of each bucket is going to go towards breast cancer awareness, or, I don't remember exactly what they were, saying they were going to do with that money, but to do with Pinktober. And then they got called out by lots of people because they were like, hello, you're selling fried goods, which is absolutely anti-health, right? And you're supporting a health campaign. How does it even compute, right? And that kind of makes you wonder, and it just calls them out as this superficial. And it's really sad. I do like KFC every now and then, but don't align, right? I'd rather you didn't say anything.
Even
Yeah.
Burger King did something actually. I think it was pretty infamous at the time. But they basically, during Pride Month, they came out with something that was called the Pride Whopper in a particular country. I'm not sure which one, but they were just essentially, it's the same when you order a Whopper, it's the same bun. It's two identical buns. Like the top and the bottom are the same, which was
Okay.
basically to promote like equality, and
And
it
same
just didn't
sex.
go away. Yeah. It the community
It's
were literally like, "What? This makes no
It was
sense."
it was a burger made out of the same buns. So either both will be the bottom buns or both will be the top
Top
buns.
ones, yeah,
So,
yes.
so it was,
yeah.
yeah.
It's a clever campaign. It's a clever campaign. So what happened?
I
I
think a
don't know.
lot of people in the community, it was still not. It was a bit clumsy, I think, in the way
Okay.
that they were. It was a bit opportunistic, also. I feel they tried a bit too hard in making us. I'm not sure the exact outcome, but yeah,
Mhm. So that's my question, right? In this case, it's such a clever campaign. It does start
yeah,
the conversation off. It brings it into your living room where,
yeah.
you're getting Burger King and you see this and you're like, why? And there's a whole conversation that starts. And, you know, does it not then serve the role of, in the information sharing, for example? Simple. And that in itself is such a powerful tool, right? Communication, just talking about things that otherwise would be brushed under the carpet. No?
I
Yeah.
think
But
it
from a
is.
good place. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, if that goes back to say a Burger King not really doing enough to create a diverse workforce, or if they don't have those measures in place, then it feels like it does not align, right? You are trying to create information, but what are you yourself doing about it? But coming back to the entire conversation, for me it's very difficult to sometimes figure out if something is genuine or it's, just greenwashing or pinkwashing. And I think in situations where there are backlashes or they get called out for something, the way they respond to it, the way they handle that situation, I think that is my deciding factor if I have to never buy from this brand again. If I think they like do a very shabby job of it when they're called out for something, then I think that's like my
That's the
final
thing,
leg in the
causing
coffin.
sleepless nights for that crisis comms person who's put in charge of figuring the response out, right? But I mean, see again, like there's another example that I came across and it made me wonder. P&G has a brand called Always, the sanitary napkins, and they came out with this campaign called Like a Girl. I don't know if you have seen it. It's really cool. It's about these little kids, and they talk about. I mean, they kind of ask them run like a girl or punch like a girl, and the older people in this experiment, they all like do these really like soft funny kind of movements, whereas they ask little girls to punch like a girl or run like a girl, and they do it like with full heart and passion, right? And kind of shows you that when did that happen, when did that gap kind of happen between doing things why did doing things like a girl become a bad thing? I think that was the crux of the whole thing. Very powerful campaign. I still like, it's a really old one. I still see the ad coming up every now and then on my feed. But then they got called out because the top five people, five earners in that company in PNG were all male, right? So
Hmm.
is that fair? I agree. They shouldn't be male. They should be diverse. I agree. But it just so happened. And maybe, when that came out, they didn't have the right. Again, I'm not sure. Is it fair? What do you guys think?
I think again now people love to hate,
Yeah.
so you're always looking for a reason, um, and that's unfortunate kind of reality of where we are at today. So a lot of this also kind of falls into that. They might have had the top five earners as males, but I know, for example, parts of PNG which are headed up by women,
Mm.
right? And so it's kind of unfortunate because, as I said, people love to hate for whatever it may be and find the silliest of reasons at times. Sometimes it's totally justified. Sometimes I question it. Yeah.
Hmm. I think expectations are really, really high from any big company. I
I
think
don't
that's
think
the
it's
other.
expectations. What? I'm sure that person who brought it up first did not expect PNG to have two men and three women in their top five earners. It just so
Hmm.
happened that they found it, or some of that data came up when this ad came, or there was a troll who was really looking for a reason, right? So it's not like we sit every day and evaluate every single company as to whether they're meeting certain standard levels. It's sometimes just, as I said, a troll who's trying to find a reason, or people love to hate, or sometimes it's justified. But unfortunately, that's also the noise that is there in the market today.
Closing statements, Pooja?
Yeah, didn't realize I was on mute. Closing statements. Yes, you might be coming from a good place, but uh, somewhere along the line, it starts to sort of turn around and become a little maybe selfish or for profit. Try to be a bit more mindful and more honest in supporting any cause. I would say think about it a little more than you would normally, because it's people have really come. Pride Month, for example, they've come a long way from the 1970s, if I'm not wrong, when it started, and they've really fought hard to come to where they are, and it is important to them, and it's the same way greenwashing is important for all of us. So just give it a bit more thought before. doing anything.
Yep. Enough. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think purpose means a lot to us as individuals, and for people to work for organizations, for people to buy from organization. I think purpose has that role, but I think to what Kiran said, right? It has to start from inside out. It has to be what you believe in, what you feel within your organization that then shines outside, rather than working the other way around. So I think that's don't give up, but stick to cause marketing.
Yeah, I love that. It should shine from within and go outside rather than the other way around. Very
Yes.
nice.
Yeah,
Kiran, match that.
Well, I'm hoping that three of you will agree, but for me it's completely internal at this point.
Mm.
We have, I think, a lot to do as far as Tidy is concerned. I am a very, very, very big proponent of diversity, and I think also, for example, even simple aspects within diversity, right? Like you want to also make sure that you're covering different bases. So, for example, if we've I think we've done a conversation about this before. I don't know, but about women who kind of have to leave the workforce due
mm,
to due to getting
mm,
married, yeah, childbirth, blah blah blah, and then feeling lost and not coming back. For me, that's a huge element or huge kind of area that I want to support, and I think we're doing that at Tidy, right? So, Soumya, sorry, you wanted to.
I can totally validate this because I still remember our first conversation where I work as a freelancer and everything, and we had a conversation of how Tidy makes room for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting conversation. I don't think I've ever had that as a first conversation with any client I've worked for.
Appreciate it. But yeah, so for me, it's all about internal. I think we're still, maybe 4 or 5 years away from being at a space and maturity where we can support external causes in a big way. But that doesn't mean that I'm not bothered about the environment and I'm not bothered about education and those kind of things. It's just that from a Tidy perspective, to support it as an organization, we're still probably a few years away from that.
Yeah. And meanwhile, charity begins at home, like you said. Start with the little things within the organization. And we've said this before, it's good to have open channels of communication and keep having these conversations, right? At the end of the day, that authenticity will only come if you're absolutely transparent and clear about what we are saying to whom, and everyone should feel welcome and okay to voice their thoughts, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Eventually all of that will trickle to the outside world, and there you have it. You found your purpose, you found your cause. That should be enough, and we should be confident about just sticking to that, sticking to what we know, sticking to what we're good at, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Great, and we're out of time, but thank you so much. This is great. I think I learned a lot more about, and kind of get got a lot more clarity on my
yeah.
stand on cause washing. So thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Right. Bye bye for now. Next week again, we'll be back with our next Tidy Tea Time. Do join us then. Bye.
Bye.